It's Don here from the board. Thanks for coming along and checking out this video. So today's video is all about the Swiss helper. I think it was 2 weeks ago from when I'm recording this that I'd actually given a shout out to Nice and Creamy from Reddit because he had released some images of his creation, which is a small form factor onboard microcontrol unit to replace a Pro Micro. The design of it was very similar to that hand-wired board that somebody else had created. I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but it didn't have the issues of rotated switches. And we talked extensively about the limitations of having rotated switches because your LEDs are going to be in a different position. You might have cap fitment issues because of the asymmetrical crucifix on MX stems, and also the limiting factor on where you can actually position that controller. So Nice and Creamy went and created his own version of something similar, primarily driven towards supporting hand-wired keyboards, but he does have plans to actually expand on what he's created so that it could be sort of daisy-chained with other PCBs to build full-size macro pads or keyboards and so on and so forth. Now, I've actually known Creamy for a while through Slack, and I asked if he was interested in sending me a spare unit if he had one available, and he was really generous and said, yep, I can shoot one over, and it turned up. Now, this is a massive box, and to give you a sense of scale here, I'm just going to switch over to the desktop. So there is the size of the box. It's quite large. We're talking about what's that? Almost 6-inch in size, quite thick and heavy. Well, not heavy, but hefty. But in here is one very small PCB and a couple of keycaps. So thank you very much, Creamy, for actually sending it over. I'm going to open that off screen, so I'm not going to be sharing info that we don't want to. And there it is. Plus a couple of keycaps that Creamy, I believe, himself made, because he's sort of done a bit of dabbling in the actual creation of artisan keycaps, which is really cool. He actually did one, it was kind of like a honeycomb one with a bee. I don't know whatever happened to it, but it was pretty nifty. So first and foremost, I want to just have a quick look at the actual keycaps, because I haven't actually taken them out of the bag. So not bad. They're pretty smooth. They seem to be well formed. Different color shots. It's got kind of a little maker's mark on the inside. You can tell that it's been sanded to smooth out the bottom because of the way that the plastic's been pushed in the actual crucifix there. The actual cap itself is very solid. If you look how shallow that is, that means all of that is a solid shot. So that's pretty nifty. This one's a different profile, so you can see they're actually I think they look to be OEM rather than cherry in terms of profile, but I do like the fact that they've got a nice gloss to the surface. It's either that or they've been painted or something like that, but I'm not 100% sure. Not going to go about scratching it though. Could be the type of resin or sort of epoxy that was used, polyurethane that was used, but this one has a much cleaner stem. You can see that there, although the edges are a little bit sort of on the wonky side, so they maybe that mold might have had a bit of compression happening. Not 100% sure, but that's okay. So there's my trusty old switch tester that I use to test fit and whatnot. So let's just pop that on, make sure that I get the right direction. There we go. Seems to go down perfectly fine, no issues. Going with the flick test. Seems to be holding pretty well, so nice and snug and comes off easily. Second keycap, that's got the orientation correct. There we go. Goes all the way down, which is fine. And the flick test is fine as well. So, and we can see a bit more effort required, but it's a good fit. So, excellent blanks, courtesy of Creamy. I suppose that would be an escape position row 1, and that would kind of be one of the lower rows, or possibly a row 1 for a cherry profile, is my guess from that. So thank you very much. Now let's get on to the actual Swiss helper itself. So there it is in the packet. Let's take it out. It's a reasonable size. Now I do have my helping hands on the side here, so let's see if I can set that up maybe in a moment so we can have a look at. But the first thing that I want to say is the silkscreen has a lot of detail on it. So you'll notice it's got a lot of pinout assignments on it, and it's got little arrows pointing to specific pin placements, because it is very confusing to look at primarily. Due to the fact that it supports multiple layouts, including ortho and stagger, the extra holes is why it gets really, really confusing. On the back of it, there is the silkscreen for the name of it, Swiss helper. There it is. And yeah, it's pretty nifty. It's very small, but pretty nifty indeed. So just in terms of scale, to give you an idea, we're looking at 3.5 centimeters, 35 mil by just under 35 mil at 34 mil. And then of course there's the USB. He's got a USB mini B connection there, so it's a bit stronger, I suppose, more rigid than a micro. And the actual port itself, I'm not sure if that's going to focus very well or not, but there we go. It actually has through hole components of that of that USB mount, so it should actually produce a stronger USB port, less likely to actually break off, because it actually goes through and is soldered through the other side, which is really fantastic. So let's check out how much it weighs. Tear it to 0, and the whole thing weighs 4 grams. It's pretty light, so I don't expect that it's going to cause too much of an issue if you're making a build. If anything, it's probably very comparable to a Pro Micro, which I should have thought about, but I do have. I've got a whole bag of them available here. So Pro Micro in its packet weighs 4.8 grams. You're just gonna have to trust me because the lighting's not really showing it very well. But if I take an empty packet, give or take, and I put that on it, it weighs practically 0.8. Is that right? It does. Weighs 0.8. So the Pro Micro is 4 grams, including headers. So this is actually slightly heavier. No, it's 1 gram heavier than a Pro Micro. Sorry, 0.1 gram heavier than a Pro Micro. It's good to know. Very, very comparable. Which, it's pretty cool. Right, now let's see if I can get some close-up activity here, so it's not so wobbly. Put some stuff aside. Let's move my quad hands over, and then let's see if I can clamp something. There we go. Alright, so hopefully that'll maintain focus. Now I need to find something to pointer with. As you can tell, this is a highly organized video. So along the sides here, we've got a whole range of pins. So you can see there's B1 or D1, D0, E6, F0, F1. Then on the other side, we've actually got one which is called row 0. Just going to break that off so it's not so annoying. Okay, so on that side you've got row 0, D2, D3, D5, couple that are a bit obscured, B1. Then down the bottom here, you've actually got D7, B4. Across the bottom, you've got C6, C7, F7, F6, F5. Now, you've also got internally here, you've got VCC, which you can see, which has the arrow pointing to that specific hole. You've got another VCC, you've got a reset button, similar to how the teensies have it, and you've got a column 0. Now, the thing about this one, which makes it interesting and different to, say, a Pro Micro, is that because it's got switch placements, what Creamy's actually done is he's actually set row 0 and column 0 pre-assigned. So if you were to get a switch, and I don't know if this is actually going to be ALPS compatible. Probably not. Let's get an actual MX switch. Well, let's get an MX housing, no stem, because I've actually gone and pinched that to do something else with it. So in theory, if I put this in, I think it must be on the opposite side. Yeah, okay. So it's designed to be on this side like that. Okay. So when I have it in this position, this becomes row 0, column 0. So I am led to believe... Sorry. Didn't mean to drop it. Suppose if you solder these in, that would probably help. But by having it in that place, come on, almost looks like a horrified face. As you can tell, this is not very easy because they don't snap in or anything like that. Yeah, so by having that pin filled in, it's basically taking the row 0, column 0 assignment. Now you'll notice how I've got it in this far position. It actually supports 2 positions very close to each other because that enables you to have the stagger. And similarly so, below you can actually put it into a whole range of positions to support the row height. So this can be set so it's a standard row height gap between the 2 switches, or you can actually have it like a quarter row offset below, as if it was like a F row or something like that, instead of just a straight up row below. And similarly so on this other side, you've got a whole bunch of different positions that the stem will fit into, 3 positions to be precise, as well as offsets for compatibility, like into that spot, into the middle, or even across to that spot on the side. I think it's really, really nifty. Obviously, it doesn't actually support, or maybe it's not obvious. Let me just have a look. No. So it does not support PCB mounted switches very well because it doesn't have the holes on either side of that center stem. Not that this one was actually a PCB mount switch housing anyway, that's why it was just falling out, but I suppose because it's so cramped, you probably don't have the space that will enable you for it. Now, Creamy did actually share with me the pinout for it, and the diagram was very full. It was very cluttered, and it's not that he did a bad job with it, but it's more that it was actually very challenging to kind of get across a lot of the information with the pins and switch placement. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that picture. So let's just switch over to my monitor. So this is what it looks like, and this is the pin assignments that are available. Now, I count 20 pin assignments available, but what you can kind of see here on it is there's a whole bunch of different clusters which match the column 1, column 0 aspect, but he hasn't sort of circled the row related items. Just as a quick look, he said this one that I've got is actually version 1, and he's got another version already happening, a revision of it, which might help. But what I did also recommend for him is to maybe do like a black and white version of this image so that you can colorize certain positions and holes, so it's a little bit easier to see where you would put them if you wanted certain physical layouts. So yeah, there you go. That is a sort of quick look. I'm obviously not building anything with this particular chip today, but that is what the Swiss helper looks like in person. I think it's really cool. I think it's definitely going to be of interest to a lot of people. Whether he will put it into mass production anytime soon or not, or he's still going to do a couple of revisions, is yet to be seen. But I'm really happy that I've got this to play with. I will probably put something together. What? I'm not 100% sure, but I don't have it here next to me. It's in the other room. But if you remember when I took apart that TKL with the corrosion on the actual PCB, if 20 pins actually is enough, I could potentially build a hand wire out of that and utilize this instead of the actual deck PCB that was on it, since I did lift some pads on that. Okay, so thank you, Creamy, once again for sending me the PCB and these keycaps that you made, which I believe you made. Really appreciate it. And of course, thank you everyone for actually checking out this video. Now, if you want to put your sort of support behind Creamy, hit him up on Reddit, let him know that you're really interested and you can't wait to see the next revision of this. And of course, if and when he puts out interest checks and so on and so forth, then get behind that as well. So thank you for checking out the video. Don't forget, we have Instagram, Patreon, Facebook, Slack. If you want to get involved with us and hang out on Slack, which is where this picture came through, but not in our Slack, but another Slack, send me an email at theboardpodcast@gmail.com and I'll shoot you an invite. So yeah, thanks very much. And of course, until next time, happy clacking.